The next talk will be given by Zeki Seskir from the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology and also a QWorld board member about quantum games and interactive tools for quantum technologies, outreach and education. Thank you in advance, Zeki. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Marlo, and thanks to the organizers for organizing this event. It has been going well. I'm really happy to be a part of it. I'm no longer a board member of QWorld, but I'm still in the team. So hello everyone, my name is Zeki. I am currently at Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, Institute for Technology Assessment and Systems Analysis. Also, as mentioned, I'm from QWorld, a co-founder of QTurkey and a co-coordinator of a project under the QT-EDU Coordination and Support Action called Quantum Technologies Education for Everyone. And today I will talk about quantum games and interactive tools for education and outreach. And here is an outline of my talk. I will briefly talk about quantum games, why, when, and certain hows. Then I will introduce our pilot program because this study, this paper is actually written, well, most of the authors from the paper are also pilot members, so it shaped the paper in that way. Later I will talk more about the paper, introduce it, and games and tools that were covered by the paper. Later I will provide some additional points and some conclusions and some hopefully not so stupid provocative questions for the community. If you are interested in any way, please feel free to contact me. Here are my email addresses, or you can basically reach me through LinkedIn. So quantum games, why? So this is already explained in the previous wonderful presentations by Laura and Shaeema. But for completeness of this presentation, I will say, well, there are many reasons for creating quantum games or playing quantum games, but we can mainly say that teaching quantum physics and technologies is a part of it. Citizen science efforts is again a huge part of it. Raising awareness on quantum physics or quantum technologies is another part of it. And especially developing quantum games is a great learning tool and practice for people. So in that sense, it can be used as a tool for learning, not just playing the games, but developing the games, and also fun. And here is a quote from James Wooten, who is a very well-known figure and also our collaborator in the paper. So quantum computers are a new technology, games are great, let's put them together. So this is what I've been looking for. And now people heard the call and joined the fun. So as Laura mentioned, there are many quantum games out there. So people actually heard the call and the number of games have been increasing. But how many games are out there? So this is the QIntern project that we completed last year with some wonderful interns. And here you can see 3 different resources. This is the list that Laura mentioned. This is our repository, and this is Laura's repository. So here you can see, as you dig deeper, you find more and more quantum games that are out there. So this is from our list, and here you can see that following 2014, especially not just 2014, but since 2009 and 2010, there have been some quantum games around. And following 2014, which is the first quantum game jam, the number of quantum games have been increasing, almost linearly. And when we look at the types of the quantum games out there, or at least in our data set, we see that the most are puzzle games or simulation games or arcade games. And of course, some of these are educational as well in terms of their purposes. But we see that there are also some strictly educational games, and there is a kind of a diversity there as well. So let me check the chat. Okay, so no questions. So So one question that we might ask is, how popular are these games? You know, are people really playing quantum games? And one of the especially important ones is the quantum chess that was developed into, if I remember correctly, it was 2016, and this was a promotional video that has been watched more than 8 million times, that has Stephen Hawking and Paul Rudd, which is the Ant-Man, in an epic quantum chess match. And later this game has been used by different companies in a competition that, you know, the Google and Amazon teams and other teams were playing these games. And also there is a quantum version of Minecraft, which was also publicized by Qiskit and IBM's team. And also IBM developed their own game, and which are, now in comparison to the other more mainstream games, of course these games are very indie and does not reach that many people. But it is important to note that it is not just an academic activity. They are not just educational games. There are games out there that reach people and people actually play just for fun. So now, as quickly as I can, I will introduce our pilot. You can reach more details and our members through here, this link, or you can use this QR code here. And this Quantum Technologies Education for Everyone pilot is mainly focused on outreach and education, as you might have guessed. So my co-coordinator is Marilu from University of Pisa, and we have many members from different institutions and companies. So here you can see almost all of the logos, but there are some others as well. You can check the website. So what we do in the pilot, we have mainly 4 synergetic actions. Action A is to produce the essential syllabus of quantum physics concepts to be outreach and of their main applications to quantum technologies. For Action B, we are conducting a Delphi study to identify the stakeholders, problems, and opportunities in outreach activities. For Action C, we are realizing some joint outreach activities, which is a very generic action, I admit. And for Action D, we are trying to formulate and implement some RRI dimensions into our pilot activities, and also develop some, let's say, guidelines for how to implement RRI dimensions to the activities that are going on, which are outside of the pilot. What we have done so far, so we organized, as part of the European Researchers Night in 2021, we organized some events. There was a quantum games hackathon in Poland, organized by our partners. There was this quantum jungle, the dance of quanta, and there was this another quantum game hackathon in Turkey, organized again by our partners. Also, there was a quantum game jam as part of the Internet Festival 2021. There were some talks, panels, and the Delphi study. And also there was a symposium on responsible quantum technologies. We were also part of the Italian Quantum Weeks, and we hosted a panel at World Conference on Physics Education on games for quantum physics education. And here, actually, I would really appreciate if those that haven't filled this survey, that are dealing with quantum outreach or having outreach efforts in the quantum technologies field, because it is important for us to actually identify, what the community thinks, who are the stakeholders, what are the opportunities, what does games have to do with outreach and education? Are they important? Are there other more important topics? So we would really appreciate if you can fill this out. And yeah, now we come to the paper. So this will be updated, but this is the current version on arXiv. And the article is mainly, well, it is not exactly a review, but it covers a lot of different tools and games that are out there and their stories, because actually most of the authors are developers of one or the other tools and games that have been presented in the paper. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to provide the first-hand experiences of these developers to the readers, so that people can, just read through these sections and have some idea on what the developers intended, what were their goals, and very briefly, what are the tools, what are the aims for these tools. And also, we added an additional section on quantum game development and what kind of additional activities that you can organize or host. So hackathons, game jams, semester projects. So we included one, let's say, case study of an hackathon, and another case study of a semester project under University of Texas. And we, of course, discussed the pilot and some further discussions on the issue of assessment, because we think it is a very important topic to be discussed. So why did we write this paper? Actually, the idea of writing this paper came to us as we saw that there was a special section on education and training in quantum sciences and technologies, which is very nice, because that is what we were doing and we were trying to promote. And we gathered our members and we reached out to others as well, and we created this list of people that might want to join in. And in the end, after some deliberation, we had the list of these tools and games. These are in no way exhaustive. There are many other games and many great researchers that are not co-authors of this paper, but we wanted to give an idea to the readers, what is going on, because we hope that this paper will be read by not just outreach or education researchers or game developers, at least for educational purposes, but we want this paper to be read by the quantum physicists and optics researchers and photonics researchers, so that they can see that there are these efforts going on for especially in education and outreach efforts that are beneficial to what they are trying to do. So this is the first one that is covered in the paper, which is from IBM, Hello Quantum. And I will go through this list rather quickly. I will share the presentation in the Discord channel later on, so you can just click the links and check the games yourself. Almost all of the games are free to play, or at least there are some tutorial versions or trial versions that you can try out for free. Which is also an issue that I will come or ask you in the end, because how to fund these activities is also something that we should discuss as a community. And this is from Particle in a Box and Psi and Delta, which were developed in Georgia Tech. And here you can actually reach to these games, which were just Unity games that you can play on your browser. And there is QPlayLearn, which are also developing certain efforts and certain tools for quantum education and outreach. You can check their website. There is this quantumgame.io, which is quantum game with the latest version of the quantum game with photons, which is a very nice game that you can play through this website. And I would recommend you to join their Discord to get the updates on time. And also there's this paper that you can check. And here, so this is not the game, but Virtual Lab is the engine that powers the quantum game with photons. You can read the paper, which is, which actually very neatly describes how such an engine works and what kind of problems that you might encounter while developing such an engine, because one of the main issues is that how to best implement these in a in a practical manner, because what you want to do is, it's not a simulation, it's a game. It should run on low resources devices as well. So this is an important topic, and I would really recommend you to read Piotr and others' paper. Quantum Odyssey is one of the more commercial games, and I would really recommend you to check it. It requires a download, but I think the first chapter is entirely free, and also you can reach out to Laura, and he would be. I hope that he would be happy to provide you at least some versions of the game, and you can check the website. And this is from the ScienceAtHome team, which Shaeema also extensively referenced because she was there. And they have these really great set of tools and games, and especially in terms of citizen science, I think they were one of the most successful teams that are out there. They have great papers published using these citizen science games in real physical experiments. And this is the Virtual Quantum Optics Laboratory from University of Texas, which is something I really like because especially during the COVID times, most of the labs for educational purposes were unusable. And such a tool is very good, especially for undergraduate levels, I think. And also they developed this lab manual for courses that I think Brian Lacour would be happy to provide you if you reach out to him. And there's this entire manual for a lab course that you can use VQOL, and it doesn't require anything than just your browser. It is very well written. It doesn't there are no scaling problems as you increase the size of your experiments. And also you can actually test some of your experiments beforehand in a very rudimentary manner. So some additional points for the paper. We covered some activities in creating quantum games, quantum games, games hackathons, and game jams. And Laura very beautifully described the difference between them. Hackathons are more competitive. There are usually prizes for hackathons, and for game jams, they are more like jams. They are more freestyle, and usually there are no prizes because there's no competition, or at least the competition aspect of these development processes are not that emphasized in quantum jams, quantum game jams. And this topic of quantum computer games project-based courses, which is also which might also feel, so if you listen Laura's and Daria's talk yesterday, their course is also in accordance with this kind of efforts in creating quantum games. And one of the other things that we covered in the paper that we think is rather missing and required at some point in the community is assessment tools and assessment criteria for these quantum games, because especially when looking at games that are so different in different genres that were developed for different reasons, how do you assess these games in terms of what they were supposed to do? Let's say you have two educational games. One of them is running on some console and the other one is running on your browser. And you are going to choose one of these for your course. How are you going to assess the validity or the effectiveness of these tools or these games? So this is from the Quantum Games Hackathon that was organized in Poland. So there were 4 main criteria. One of them is correctness. Are the assumptions and usage of quantum mechanics and quantum computing appropriate in the game? Playability. Is the game entertaining? Does it have educational potential? Is the user interface inviting? So basically, would you enjoy playing such a game, or is it just too much of a headache to play? Originality, how creative and innovative is the idea? So one of the things that we encountered, especially in hackathons, is that there are some concepts that are just carried over and used over and over, which means that they are strong concepts and they should be noted, but also it means that the games that are utilizing such concepts are not that original. And of course, quality and completeness. Is the game polished and ready to play? Are the mechanics well introduced? So this is a very this has nothing to do with the quantum part as well, but I think it is important for a game to be easily playable and not filled with bugs and crashes all the time. And this is a very preliminary and not that explanatory assessment or listing of the tools that we covered. One important thing that we can maybe discuss here is that the idea of having single player games and multiplayer games is not that well explored in quantum games, because I think it might be an important topic, especially regarding the future developments of these games and also the concepts. We think that it might be a good idea to differentiate between the games and which concepts that they are focusing on, especially on a fundamental level. Also, you can just list the licenses and release years and the platforms as well. Of course, we didn't cover all of the games. We didn't cover many games. One of the games that are out there is the Qubit game by Google Quantum AI. The other is, I think this is one of the first quantum games, the Quantum Minesweeper, the Quantum Chess. We didn't cover them. And for conclusion, we can say, quantum games as a field is an emerging topic and acknowledged by companies. And one of the things here is that if you write quantum games, what you get in Google is usually quantum game theory, which is something very different than what we are talking about here, but the names usually collide. So in that sense, I agree with Laura that it might be even better to use the concept of quantum computer games. But then the problem arises that what to do with the card games and what to do with these console games, what to do with AR or VR games. So the categorization, or at least how to properly name this concept, is a little bit tricky right now. So I think work like defining quantum games is really important for this. And there are many games and tools developed for the purpose of quantum outreach and education, and there are even several startups focusing on this. So if yesterday you listened to my talk on quantum startup ecosystem, I mentioned that there is this growing field of supporting companies in the ecosystem of startups, and some of these supporting companies are using or are being founded for the sole purpose of developing quantum games or quantum education and outreach purposes. And one of them is also, Shaeema's company. And there is a need and demand by the community for the development of assessment criteria and tools that can be utilized and implemented easily. So I think the easily part is important, because if you talk with educational researchers, there are some assessment tools, like, for example, what Shaeema described is a great way to collect data and assess, but not everyone can do that. It requires a high level of expertise. So there should be some assessment tools that are easily available to basically anyone that wants to assess the effectiveness of different quantum games or quantum tools for their purposes, because you cannot assess everything, the direction and the purpose and the aims matter, and they should be implementable in the assessment tool, so that you are able to use that tool for different purposes, but still easily. I want to ask some, out there questions to the community, because I hope that everyone here is at least a little bit interested in the field. So why the gaming industry is not involved, isn't quantum cool enough for them? I have some ideas on this, but I think this is something that we should think about, because it was very important what Laura said. We are at a place that we should discuss what quantum computers or what quantum technologies can do for the games, and not the other way around. What games can do for quantum computers or quantum technologies for outreach and education. Also, just simulations are also fine. So what is special about these quantum games? Aren't all games just games? Do we need to classify AI games, nano games, biotech games? So why are we dealing with quantum games? Just because we come from quantum physics backgrounds and we like games doesn't mean that quantum games are any more special than nano games, or does it? We should discuss this at some point, I think. And is there, or can there be a way to quantize existing classical games? Can all games be quantizable? So if you have a quantum tic-tac-toe, quantum chess, quantum Tetris, quantum solitaire, quantum Minecraft, can you have quantum anything? Is it possible, or what are the limits to this? Is it just a naming issue? One other topic is how to fund the field. Should the developers aim for a quantum Candy Crush type of games to have just this one big break, have the money to fund other games, or should we rely solely on government funding or companies? I think this is a topic to be. Okay. And finally, what is the most appropriate medium for quantum games? Like, is PC, Mac, mobile, browser-based, console, AR, VR, MR? So I think this should also be discussed at some point. So I would like to thank you for listening. You can reach to the pilots, to the Delphi study, and to the paper through here. And while you are checking these out, I will look at the chat.
This is great. Thank you so much, Zeki, for this great presentation and this really great overview of everything that is possible at the moment. Could you go back to the slide with the questions you had for everyone?
Yeah, thanks. This is the one, right?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
The session is open for questions, and as I will keep an eye on the chat. In the meantime, could also the other speakers, Shaeema and Laura, could you unmute and could we discuss some of these questions with you? Maybe the main thing, how can we bring quantum games outside of the community? Everyone knows Wordle, but there is not a quantum Wordle yet that everyone knows, even not physics teachers.
Yeah, we actually somewhat started talking about like the second question, for example, like what is special about quantum games? And in our paper, we discuss it like now quantum and quantum technologies are a novice thing and a big thing, and they want to emphasize quantum being related to a game. But maybe in the future, we have quantumness, something like as like the visual card we have in our computer. So something that we don't even necessarily mention. We have a game and it has something quantum in it. So maybe in the future, we don't even mention it. So I'd say it's mostly because it's a new-ish thing that we want to underline it. But otherwise, I know 2 gaming companies at least that have been really interested in this concept, but the rest of them might just not know. I have been giving talks for the community as well, but so far I guess it has to give them something as well, because the gaming industry is heavily, running around money being made and the competition related to that. So the usual answer for these is money, I guess. But this is just my guess at this point. That doesn't actually, for the Mitel company that's behind Clay, they are just purely enthusiastic and super excited about anything quantum related. So they are creating this commercial game around quantumness without any separate funding for it, for example.
That is great. What are your views on this, Shaeema?
Yeah, I was also, I mean, it is like Laura said that I think not too many people, first, I think people don't even understand the word quantum. Even if you say quantum game, suddenly, so there is this very a learning barrier, like the word itself becomes this suddenly big word. They've heard about it, but it's like a buzzword, but they don't exactly know what it is. So I think we have to work on that barrier of, we say it's games that teach physics, but maybe physics at the atomic scale or something like that without using the word quantum. But because everyone knows what science and they know physics, but then suddenly quantum physics becomes something a bit far away. So it, in some sense, it drives people away also because they think, okay, I don't understand this. So maybe, yeah. So I think maybe that's why there is this barrier of the gaming industry not being involved. Yeah.
There's also the aspect that gaming industry usually is really interested in new technologies. But the thing with quantum computers at the moment is that like it's not necessarily that easy to get your own quantum computer. You can access open access quantum computers for IBM, for example, but you need to queue up for them. So that's really not that useful for a game per se at this moment. So maybe in the future we have like a separate type of a situation than this, but at the moment this is the like, please sell me a quantum computer that it's easy to use and I don't have to upkeep and use one full room for it, for example. And but that is kind of the limitation for it, queuing up and waiting, I guess.
Yeah, great input. Thank you very much. Would you like to give your last view on this, Zeki? And then maybe let's continue the tradition from the previous session. Could you then conclude it in your native language before we continue with Nora?
Yeah, thanks. I think I agree with both Laura and Shaeema. And so one of the things that I observed, because we organized 3 hackathons in Turkey, and our main sponsors are from gaming industry, especially for the hyper casual games, they are not really that interested in the technology that is behind them. What they are using is already created assets. So as far as I can understand from their comments was that if there are these assets created at Unity or Unreal Engine, that they will use it, but they don't think that it is their job to create those assets and popularize those assets. So there should be some efforts either on the side of the Unity or the Unreal Engine or some open source developers to create those assets and popularize them, and that assets to be actually beneficial for the gameplay, or at least some UI perspective. So in that sense, they are not really that interested as us in popularizing quantum technologies. They are more interested in making games that sell or people play. So for that, I don't think it is just related to whether they have access to quantum computers or not, but whether any kind of quantum effect how can it be developed into an asset that is useful to them, because the concepts themselves are not that useful to them currently. And I will I will stop sharing, and in Turkish, dinlediğiniz için teşekkürler ve bir sonraki konuşmada geçebiliriz.